All right, good morning, everyone. I will call the recommending committee meeting to order November 5th, 2018. We have a quorum up here. Item number 1 is called to order, which I just did. Item number 2, we're in compliance with the open meeting law. Thank you, we are. Item number 3 is adjournment, so I know a lot of you would just like to adjourn at this point, but we're not going to do that. I will trail item number 3 till the end. So item number 3 will trailed. Item number 4 is bill number 2018-20 for possible action amends LBMC 6.95.090 to limit the availability of business licenses for retail marijuana stores to those that will be operated in conjunction with medical marijuana dispensary at the same location and will be the same ownership. I don't think the bill says that anymore, but I'll go ahead and just to make everybody clear, why don't we have Val and Councilman Coffin explain exactly what this bill is about with the extra amendments on there so everybody knows what we're talking about here, including myself.
Okay, let me get started, and then maybe Councilman Coffin can interrupt me if I do something wrong. The original bill would have limited the availability of retail stores to those who would also operate a medical operation. The proposed amendment that you have in front of you, I think it's is it a second amendment or a first?
Second.
The proposed amendment in front of you would basically say you no longer have to have that relationship. It can be a standalone retail, but you have to essentially treat your customers. You prioritize those who have a medical need. There's education requirements. I think we read these into the record last time, but the store is designed so that areas where product is dispensed are not visible to persons outside the store, provide priority service to holders of valid registry identification cards, offer for sale marijuana products that contain high levels of CBD, and provide educational information to customers upon request regarding the availability of different types of marijuana and marijuana products and their purported medical effects. We presented that last meeting. There was a desire to look into the possibility of a distance separation between retail operations. We haven't included that in language. We weren't able to find a legal justification for doing that. My recommendation is that we process the bill the way it is, and if somebody can come forward with a legal justification for distance separations, we would process that through the Planning Commission, which hasn't seen this aspect of the bill, and then we could bring it forward if that ever happened.
Mr. Chair, what Val has just said is true. I did check that. What I want to know is when you say if there's an appetite to add a distance or to make any other changes, it would have to go to planning. Could this bill be moved and then any other changes be just considered amendments to the ordinance so that the bill moves, but any amendments could be trailing?
The amendment would have to take place before the bill obviously was published and died, and if the distance aspect were to be processed through the Planning Commission, that would take a couple of months, something like that. And so what you'd end up doing is not publishing the bill, and it just sits here and waits for the other to catch up. And I'm doubtful that it will catch up because I don't know that we're going to find a legal justification for it. So I recommend that be brought forward separately, if at all, so that this can move forward.
Okay, well, thank you, and thanks for doing double research for me to find out if that was workable. Mr. Chair, I don't know if there's any testimony on the bill.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, Val, we don't have a moratorium. We'll have medical marijuana, recreational marijuana. There's just some stipulations. Okay, but they're not onerous. Okay. All right, this is a public hearing. Who from the public would like to comment for or against this bill? Anybody?
Michelle had a question.
Good morning. Terry Murphy here with John Ritter, owner of
The Grove.
the Grove. We are in favor of the amendment, and if the amendment does not go forward, we are not in favor of the original bill, but we are in favor of the amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Anyone else? All right, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of the Second Amendment passage of Bill 2018-20.
Just a clarification, is it a first or a second, Clerk? I think we may have confused it with another ordinance. Is there a first or, is there a second on this one, or just a first?
The second is quite a bit different than the other.
Okay, all right, good enough. Proposed second, that's the one we want, correct?
Okay.
Thanks.
Can I just clarify? Okay. Thank you. No questions. I just want to make sure that I clarify that what we're doing is, so we're passing this 4-page bill we're recommending it to our council, but literally, this basically says our recreational marijuana dispensaries will basically give information on medicinal, and that's it. There's nothing else in it.
Mr. Chairman, through you to our colleague, it's really not forcing any one specific thing. What it is saying is that they shall provide, and it's in essence the same treatment to medical people, the same kinds of drugs, but not the whole quantity of drugs that maybe a medical only would provide, and the protections for the medical patients. I haven't heard any objections to that. It's probably something, but that's for the new 10 licensees.
Thank
in any
you.
event. Not affecting any existing dispensaries.
Okay.
All right, go ahead and vote. And post. Okay, motion. All right, this will be sent to the November 21st, 2018 City Council meeting for final vote. Item number 5 is the, for possible action, amends LVMC 19.10.160C to exempt signage from the Las Vegas Boulevard Scenic Byway Overlay District from the general limitations on animated signage that prohibit full motion video. Who wants to talk about this?
Well, it's my bill.
Okay, go
So
ahead.
I guess I could try, and then we'll take testimony if there's disagreements or some sort of misunderstandings. We had a hearing, and there was testimony to the effect that we shouldn't throw out neon. We should increase and encourage the use of neon along the boulevard, and I approve that. I think that it's a historic factor that plays in here. And so what we've come up with are some amendments that would essentially, and I think these are all known to the proponents of the changes, which would be that instead of 75% as required in the initial bill, that the bill would require 50% neon. Excuse me, I'm not sure that there wasn't a minimum amount in the original bill. This now says that 50% would be neon, which can be, I suppose, in any combination. Framing of a motion sign is acceptable, I believe. And then there's also a third amendment that came in from the planners who feel that proposed signs should be a certain distance, a certain minimum distance from a couple of key intersections. Well, Fremont and the Boulevard, Charleston and the Boulevard, and Sahara and the Boulevard. And I think maybe we should need to have staff tell us, fill in the blank on the distance. It's probably okay, but we might have some non-conforming uses if we have already, for instance, Inspire Theater at the corner of Fremont. So they are right there. That sign is within a few feet of the intersection.
Mr. Chairman, through you, so just to clarify, this, and what you have in front of you is the draft language based on the last recommending committee. That's actually not excluding them from those areas. It's saying that the exemption that allows for full motion would be within a certain radius of those intersections along the scenic byway. So at Charleston, at Sahara, and at Fremont, those would be the key intersections where this full motion video would be allowed. So in the case of the Inspire at Fremont, that would be one of the three intersections that the Historic Preservation Commission recommended where this would be appropriate. And that's where that
So
language
what's the fill in
comes
the
from.
blank? It's the numbers,
I'm sorry?
there's no number feet, so
Yeah,
what's
in
the
the
number?
drafting, we had left it blank, but I believe 100 feet is what is being recommended. That's normally the distance between signs, so if it's within 100 feet of that intersection, that is generally considered an appropriate distance separation between signs along a frontage like that.
Okay, so you want us
But the
to,
concept of the limiting the full motion to those key intersections was a part of the discussion by the Historic Preservation Commission. That's where that comes from.
Could I ask,
Initially.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make sure I understand clearly what you mean, because you're talking about a radius. Radius from where? The center point of the intersection? Or distance from the nearest street, if it's an intersection, 10 feet one way, 10 feet another, or something like that? I'm kind of curious how you would draft it so that people would really understand.
I'm sorry, Councilman, so I misspoke. Radius is probably the wrong word, particularly since we're looking at a linear distance on the scenic byway. So it would be from the right-of-way. So if you're on the north side of Fremont, so 100 feet from that property line that intersects with the right-of-way for Fremont North, and 100 feet from the right-of-way line on the south side. So you'd go 100 feet basically in either direction from the right-of-way line. I apologize, not a radius.
If I could ask a question, then, does that mean no motion signage within 100 feet then of those intersections?
No motion signage more than 100 feet from those intersections. So within 100 feet of that intersection, that's where your motion would be.
I see.
After you've moved away from that, 100 feet away from those three intersections, then you would be under the current standard, which is just a static image.
Oh, that's funny, because that's not what I had in mind. What I think we had in mind was, this is progress, this is coming. I mean, there are changes happening, but I understand, the historic significance of promoting neon, having neon. It's just that it's darned expensive to have to manufacture and repair, and they have stuff that now complies. Well, it looks like neon, but it might be LED or it might be some other thing. Because I don't want to just limit it to that. I think the limitation that I wanted was simply the size, the percentage of neon that would be remaining if a sign is changed or installed, that it would still put an emphasis on neon by having at least half of the sign being neon. And that was anywhere along the boulevard.
Correct, Mr. Chairman, through you. So, Councilman, that's why this is just draft language and wasn't actually prepared as a First Amendment today, because it's still a part of the open for conversation. So, again, as a part of the discussion, and the chair for the Historic Preservation Commission is here as well, just in case I misstate anything from those meetings. But as a part of their conversation, they were recommending a further, I believe they agreed with you in terms of they liked the idea of not counting the full LED board as a part of their illumination requirement if they were granted the ability to do motion, which is what B does in the draft language you have. But they also had some concern that the scenic byway in the city is different than the boulevard in the county, in that you have, outside of those three major intersections, which are heavily commercial areas, you do have residential that's right off of the boulevard in other stretches. And so they had a concern about allowing the motion video outside of these kind of three key intersections along the boulevard, which is why they were proposing a limitation on where the motion was allowed within the scenic byway. So this was the proposal. Of course, as the bill sponsor and as the recommending committee, you can go with the language that they've asked us to put forth, or amend it to include additional intersections, to disregard it at your discretion.
Well, it looks like a way to get around having people who have neon now be untouched by this, so they wouldn't be legal nonconforming. They would be legal, but then that means everybody else would have a hard time, or what would they be allowed to do anywhere else?
So anywhere besides these three intersections, they would be able to do exactly what they can do today. They can have an LED board. That LED board can have changeable messaging, but that changeable messaging must be static, which means an image displays for 6 seconds at least, then it can change without any slideshow animation, but it can change to another image that is for at minimum 6 seconds. So anywhere else on the boulevard, that would be their limitation. If you're within 100 feet of the intersections at Sahara, Charleston, or Fremont, you could, if you meet the other two requirements, you could have motion video on your LED signage if your sign itself only contributed to up to 50% towards your 75% illumination, and if the sign was wall-mounted and not freestanding.
Okay, well, let me uncomplicate.
Which is the other condition
I hope
that
for my
they-
own brain. So any new sign, 50% neon, or a neon-like usage as things evolve, something that imitates, mimics neon, on the signs on the right-of-way. Signs on the buildings are, they're okay? Like, for example, the big electronic sign on the Stratosphere, new Strat, and that's big, really big. Are they in code compliance right now?
So, Mr.
It's on a
Chairman.
building. It's attached to the building at this point, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you, so all of those signs for the Stratosphere have gone through review. Again, because the Strat is so big, it allows for, because our signs are proportion-based, so because the Strat is so big, that means that those elevations get really big signs. And to my understanding and knowledge, I would have to have code go take a look, but I believe everything has been permitted at this point, so everything should be in order for those signs on the Strat. I do know that they've received review, and so that they should be in code
Is
compliance.
this with the understanding that signs on a building are not as distracting as signs freestanding, like blades, right, to the street?
Well, they could be both. I mean, we allow for these LED signs, whether they're on a building or a freestanding sign, to have changeable message units at this point. So, however, the draft that you have in front of you would minimize the motion to only allow the motion to be on signs that are attached to the buildings, not to freestanding. So sort of like the Eclipse, or I'm sorry, Inspire. Inspire, the signs are on the building, and so those would qualify under this ordinance to allow it to have changeable or to have full motion video, whereas a standalone sign such as Fun City, I think recently they got approval for a new freestanding sign. While that has an LED board as a part of that freestanding sign, it would not be eligible under this proposed amendment for that to have motion video. Only signs on the buildings would be eligible for motion
Well,
video.
let's go down the boulevard just a second so we make sure we're not accidentally messing with somebody. Down the street, you have Wedding Chapel, Ron DeCar owns, which I understand now ownership is transferring to the people who own the Thunderbird Hotel, so that's a huge change. However, I don't know what their plans are, but Ron was the first person I initiated this for a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, to allow him to have a little 2-foot by 4-foot sign, and we've gone so far. Can we ask, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I don't want to delay the meeting, but the people who came to us are here. Michelle Lareem from the Historic
I'm waiting
Preservation.
for you to finish so I can open up public comment.
I'm done,
You're done?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and have public comment. So anyone who would like to comment on this particular bill, please come on up. Do you have this here?
Oh.
Okay. Oh, you got a copy?
I'm hoping that I don't need it. Thank you.
Those are the proposed changes, so
Yes. So I am Clay T. White. I'm the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, and what Paul just presented is exactly what we discussed at our last meeting. So the existing neon is our primary objective, to preserve as much of that as possible. And then the percentages that he just shared with you on those, on the buildings and the freestanding signs are the exact discussion that we just shared in our meeting on last Wednesday, I believe.
Okay, so you're in favor of the bill then?
Yes.
Okay. Hi.
Hello, Michelle Laramie with the Nevada Preservation Foundation, and our address is 330 West Washington Avenue, Suite 106, in 89106 zip code. And as you know, we've been here over the past couple recommending committees discussing our concerns and some proposed amendments that we had. So just to clarify, the proposed amendments that we had put forth in the October meeting was, as was read today, was allowing some video signage on freestanding signs, but only if it was in combination with neon or neon-like static elements, reducing the percentage of illumination down to 50%, and not allowing the video motion to count towards that 50% illumination, and also perhaps opening up video-only signage if it was building-mounted, but not allowing it to be a freestanding sign on its own unless it has those neon or neon-like elements. So those were the amendments that Nevada Preservation had proposed previously and are supporting.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this? Okay, I think we can move this along.
I do, I want to ask legal here another question. So a blade sign or any kind of a sign that's attached to the building is not a freestanding sign, is that fair to say?
Mr. Chairman, through you, yes. If it's attached to the building, so a blade, technically an awning, although you can't have a changeable message unit sign on an awning, the differentiation here is can't be a freestanding sign. So blade, roof sign, wall elevation sign, window sign, all of those would count as being eligible if they meet the other criteria.
Okay, thank you. I guess there's no objections
all
out there in
yours.
the audience.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. If you're ready for a vote, I'll move for adoption of Bill 28-39 with a proposed amendment as submitted by the city attorneys, which has been submitted for the record, having to do with the three qualifications into the bill, having to do with the location of the sign, the percentage, which is amending the 75% to 50% in most cases. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, just clarification. Are you okay with the 100 feet for the blank on the last, or do you want to do away with the distance completely?
I think it's too complicated. I think we'll have disputes with that distance.
And another question, on 5A, you'll see that it says a wall sign mounted on a building and may not be freestanding. If we want to include some of the things that Robert had indicated, like a roof sign, et cetera, maybe we just take away the wall sign and say may not be freestanding. I'm getting a nod from Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, to the sponsor, that would be my recommendation, that we, to not complicate that we just make it clear that it's not freestanding signs that we're talking about, that any other sign would be eligible.
So a freestanding sign would not be eligible to have 50% neon and 50% something else?
Mr. Chairman, through you, so I believe as written, yes, we're saying the exemption to allow motion video, you can have a freestanding sign that has neon and has a changeable message unit, but it would not be for video. Video is exempted, or you're allowed video under this exemption if the sign is mounted on the building, not a freestanding sign. That's been my takeaway from the Historic Preservation Commission's and testimony here.
So you could have motion for 6 seconds and then you flip to another view of some kind, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, through you, so on a freestanding sign, as the current code allows, you can have a digital image that stays static for 6 seconds, then goes to a new static image, to a new static image. Again, as it's written right now, that would not change for freestanding signs. It would change and allow motion if the sign was mounted on the building. whether, again, with the slight tweak to the language that the city attorney's office mentioned, that would include a wall sign,
For the next 2 weeks. When is this up for?
Want to obey it?
Huh?
Are you going to obey
No,
it?
I think we should move it, but to commission, to council, when is it scheduled to be heard?
November 21st.
Okay, that gives us 2 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So then I now move for approval of bill, if I didn't already, 2018-39, item 5, and with the amendments as discussed, and to be heard, I guess, on the 21st, and also, of course, there will be time to talk about the fine points we've discussed.
So do you have information to do an amendment? Or not?
There is no
We
C.
we can work this into the bill. What I heard was we're going to change 5A to just say the sign proposed to be exempted may not be freestanding, and we're going to remove C, which is the distance.
Is that correct?
Is that correct?
That's your motion?
That's it.
Okay. All right, very good. We have a motion, go ahead and vote. And post it. Okay, motion carries, and this will be finalized at the November 21st City Council meeting. Okay, let's just go back to item number 4. Val says he needs to clarify something on item number 4.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I obviously came unprepared this morning, so when I read to you the changes for the proposed Second Amendment, I was actually reading from the proposed First Amendment. I don't think it'll change your votes at all because you recommended adoption of the Second Amendment, but when I read to you the requirements, I talked about design. That doesn't appear in the proposed Second Amendment, and the language about CBD levels have been changed from high levels to levels at commonly established therapeutic standards for patients. I believe that's what you wanted to adopt as the proposed Second Amendment, but I didn't want to have lied to you about what was in it.
Okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
We don't need to revote then. Everybody
it's
okay with
fine.
that? All right, very good. Thanks for clarifying that. All right, item number 6, bill number 2018-43 for possible action establishes a business licensing category and corresponding regulation for fish spas, sponsored by Councilwoman Michelle Fiore. So, who would like to start the conversation here? Go right ahead.
So what I'd like to do, Chair, would be to push this to council on Wednesday with no recommending, because my plan is to just strike it Wednesday morning.
Oh, okay.
How about that?
Okay. All right, so before we take a motion, we'll open this to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to be heard on this item? Okay, I'll close public comment. Any comments from staff? Okay, Councilwoman Fiore, what's your motion?
Recommend no recommending to council Wednesday.
All right, we have a no recommendation, or we have a,
Pass no recommendation, I guess.
we have a motion to not recommend this. All right, go ahead and vote. And post it. All right, motion carries. This is going to November 21st, right, Val? They're all going November 21st. Okay, great. Item number 7. Bill number 2018-51 for possible action recommends LVMC 19.12.070 pertaining to minimum special use permits requirements for marijuana dispensaries to remove the requirement limiting accessory use to those related to marijuana-related education, sponsored by Councilman Coffin. Okay, who would like to start this conversation? Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, this is a simple cleanup item as the councilman sponsoring this bill has when working with staff over the lifespan of marijuana here in the city of Las Vegas. We've taken some very strict approaches previously, and as we've become more familiar with the industry and how it works, we've been loosening up those requirements. This cleans that up. Previously, we do not allow any accessory retail activity to occur in a dispensary unless it's related to education about marijuana. This would remove those limitations from our land use category, which would allow people to sell T-shirts or coffee mugs or whatever as a part of their dispensary operations. Thank you.
May I ask a question here on
Sure.
this? Robert, this would also include all the other goofy things that get sold relating to marijuana as well. Bongs, pipes, things that bring it through water. What do you call those things?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, actually paraphernalia is actually allowed because you need supposedly those apparatuses to
But
use
didn't
the
we put a
product.
percentage of floor space limit on paraphernalia?
There may be in the licensing category for limitations on that. Now, I'll be honest, Mary's here, she may know that off the top of her head, I don't. But under the land use category, we restricted that you could not actually apply for any secondary licenses at a dispensary for accessory sales unless it was something related to paraphernalia. So if you wanted a general retail license to sell T-shirts, you couldn't do that. If you wanted to sell, like I said, coffee mugs, other things that weren't specifically related to the use or education of marijuana, by our land use code, you could not do that because we were trying to make sure that these were, especially under the medical, that they were very much limited to medical sales operations. But again, as we've evolved our understanding of what a dispensary can and maybe should be, we're cleaning that item up so that you can have those other items at your dispensary.
So if I can ask one more thing, and so by passing this, we would put the medical licenses and locations under the same rules that we contemplate for retail licenses, the 10 that are coming down from the state. So there would be on equal footing as far as selling other stuff.
Correct. So this would apply to all marijuana dispensaries in the city, so they could all sell whatever accessory items that they chose, whether it's paraphernalia or just general retail items that are of an interest to their clientele.
Okay, so they can sell everything.
Essentially, yes.
Okay. All right, that helps.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone want to speak on this item? Okay, close the public hearing. Do you have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move for the adoption of item number 7.
Thank you. Go ahead and vote. And post. Motion carries unanimously. This will be sent to November 21st City Council meeting. Item number 8, Bill number 2018-52 amends various provisions of the municipal code to regulate the sale, display, and consumption of alcoholic beverages as well as the possession of open containers within the downtown entertainment overlay district, proposed by Brad Jerbick. Who would like to speak on this?
For the record, Mary McElhone, Deputy Planning Director. If you recall, about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, we had some off-sale liquor license changes to our code as far as what could actually be sold in off-sale locations, and also we had a requirement about placing these beverages that were sold for off-sale purchases into a bag, and the bag had to have a fastener, and the sales receipt also had to be affixed to the bag. What this ordinance does is it just extends those the ordinance, which was only for Fremont Street pedestrian mall, all the way down to the downtown entertainment overlay district. Thank you.
Which is, just explain what that is so everybody understands the specific
So this is,
location.
downtown entertainment overlay district is basically known as East Fremont Street, and I believe it goes all the way down to 8th Street from Las Vegas Boulevard. And so it mostly affects those tavern limited locations down there. Basically, a different situation was going on down on East Fremont, where we had visitors who were bringing in coolers of beverages from their homes or from other places onto the street and drinking openly. So this is going to prevent that from happening, and will give Metro the ability to actually give citations for bottles and beer cans that are being consumed openly down on the street on the downtown entertainment overlay district.
Okay. Let's do a public hearing. Anyone from the public want to speak on this bill? Don't see anybody, so we'll close public hearing. Is there a motion or question? All right, I have a motion to approve. Item number 8, go ahead and vote. And opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This will be heard at the November 21st City Council meeting. Item number 9, citizen participation. Anybody want to participate? No participation? Okay. And we'll go back to item number 3, which is adjournment. See you all later.